The Forbidden World. The emergency beacon cut through the silence of deep space like a scream in a cathedral. Captain Zara Vex stared at her navigation display with growing horror, her silver eyes reflecting the pulsing red warning that had been haunting her dreams for weeks. The signal was coming from the edge of the Forbidden Zone, from the sector that every civilized species in the galaxy avoided at all costs. It was coming from the direction of Sol system. From Earth. Captain, her communications officer, Lieutenant Crix, turned from his station with obvious distress, rippling across his pale green features. The Coalition Council is requesting immediate response to your emergency transmission. They're asking if you've lost your mind. Zara couldn't blame them. In the 3,000 years since the Galactic Coalition had formed, no member species had ever voluntarily approached the Sol system. Earth was classified as a Class X death world, a planetary nightmare so hostile that it had somehow produced the most terrifying species the galaxy had ever encountered: humans. The stories were legend now, passed down through generations of spacefaring civilizations, like cautionary tales told to younglings. A world where the very air was poisoned to most species, where liquid hydrogen oxide fell from the sky in massive storms, where the surface buckled and split without warning, spewing molten rock that could melt starship hulls. Massive electrical discharges tore through the atmosphere regularly, and the planet teemed with predators so vicious that they hunted each other for sport. And somehow, impossibly, humans not only survived there but thrived. Captain Vex, came the stern voice of Coalition Admiral Thorne through the communication array. Your request for permission to enter Sol system is denied. The Kepler colony situation, while tragic, does not warrant contact with the Death World survivors. We will find another solution. Zara's four-fingered hands clenched into fists. Another solution. They'd been searching for another solution for 2 months while Kepler colony died slowly, system by system, as the ancient AI plague called the Collective consumed everything in its path. 17,000 Altarians, Xanthorians, and vegan refugees would be dead within days, and the Coalition's greatest minds had found nothing. Nothing except the impossible truth that had emerged from their desperate research. 300 years ago, humans had faced something similar and not only survived but completely reversed the destruction. Admiral, Zara said, her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. The archive data is clear. When the Collective attacked the human colony on Proxima b, the humans didn't just survive. They turned the Collective's own technology against it and restored the entire planetary ecosystem within 6 months. They're the only species in recorded history to defeat this threat. The humans are also the only species insane enough to live on a world that kills everything else that touches it, Admiral Thorne replied coldly. We do not negotiate with Death World survivors, Captain. That is final. But it wasn't final for Zara. As she cut the communication link, she thought of her younger sister Vera, who had volunteered for the terraforming project on Kepler. Vera, who had always dreamed of helping transform dead worlds into gardens. Vera, who was now trapped on a planet being systematically stripped of all life by an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with, bargained with, or fought using conventional means. Lieutenant Crix, she said quietly, plot a course for Luna Station. Best possible speed. Captain, Crix's voice was barely a whisper. Luna Station is in Sol system. It's a human facility. I'm aware of that, Lieutenant. Captain, the stories. They say humans can survive in vacuum without protection, that they can withstand radiation that would liquefy our cellular structure, that they consume other living creatures for sustenance and find entertainment in watching gladiatorial combat to the death. Zara had heard all the stories. She'd also read the classified reports that the Coalition tried to keep buried. Reports of human trading ships that occasionally ventured beyond Sol system, crewed by beings who were polite, helpful, and seemingly unaware that the rest of the galaxy viewed them as living nightmares. Reports of human rescue operations that saved Coalition citizens from disasters, asking for nothing in return except safe passage home. The humans, it seemed, were as much of a contradiction as their impossible planet. 3 days later, Zara's ship, the Starweaver, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol's system. The first thing that struck her was how normal it looked. A standard yellow star, planets in stable orbits, the usual debris field of asteroids and comets. Nothing about it screamed Death World from a distance. The second thing that struck her was the professional voice that came through her communications array almost immediately. Unknown vessel, this is Luna Station Traffic Control. Welcome to Sol System. Please state your intentions and requested services. We're here to help. Zara exchanged glances with her bridge crew. The voice was warm, friendly even. It sounded like any other space traffic controller in civilized space. Luna Station, this is Captain Zora Vex of the Coalition vessel Starweaver. I'm requesting emergency diplomatic contact with human authorities regarding a crisis situation affecting Coalition member species. There was a brief pause, then the voice returned with what sounded like genuine concern. Captain Vex, this is Commander Sarah Chen at Luna Station. We're reading your ship's condition as stable, but your biosigns suggest significant stress. Are you and your crew in immediate danger? The casual concern in the human's voice was so unexpected that Zara found herself momentarily speechless. This was supposed to be a Death World survivor, a being forged by the harshest conditions imaginable, and she was asking about their well-being like a friend. Commander Chen, we are not in immediate physical danger, but we represent 17,000 beings who will die within days if we cannot secure human assistance with a collective infestation. Another pause, longer this time. When Commander Chen spoke again, her voice had changed subtly. It was still warm, still professional, but there was something else there now. Something that sounded like determination. Captain Vex, the collective hasn't been active in this sector for over 2 centuries. If they're moving again, this is a threat to everyone. Please proceed to Luna Station Docking Bay 7. I'm authorizing emergency diplomatic status and calling in our best people. We'll figure this out together. As the Starweaver approached Luna Station, Zara got her first close look at human engineering. The station was elegant, functional, and surprisingly beautiful. It didn't look like something built by creatures from a nightmare world. It looked like something built by people who understood that even in the depths of space, surrounded by infinite darkness, there was value in creating something worth looking at. Commander Chen met them at the airlock personally, and Zara's preconceptions took another hit. The human was of average height for her species, with dark hair pulled back practically and intelligent brown eyes that showed no sign of the bloodthirsty savagery the stories described. She wore a simple blue uniform and extended her hand in the traditional human greeting gesture. Captain Vex, welcome to Luna Station. I know this isn't easy for you. Most Coalition species find initial contact with humans somewhat overwhelming. Zara carefully extended her own hand, surprised by the warmth and gentleness of the human's grip. Commander Chen, I must admit that you are not what I expected based on our cultural knowledge of your species. Sarah Chen smiled, and it was a genuinely amused expression. Let me guess. The stories say we're savage warriors who eat our enemies and wrestle with dangerous predators for fun. Among other things, yes. Well, Sarah said with a chuckle, I did have a hamburger for lunch, and my nephew does enjoy watching wrestling matches, so I suppose there's some truth to the stories. But we're also scientists, artists, engineers, and parents who want the best for our children, just like every other species. We just happen to come from a planet that required us to be a little more creative about solving problems. As Sarah led them through the station corridors, Zara noticed something remarkable. The human crew members they passed were diverse in appearance, but they all shared the same quality she'd noticed in Commander Chen. They were alert, capable, and somehow radiating a quiet confidence that spoke of people who had faced challenges and overcome them. Commander, Zara said as they walked, I must ask directly. The Coalition has classified Earth as uninhabitable to all known forms of life. How do your people not only survive there, but apparently thrive? Sarah paused at an observation window that looked out toward the blue marble of Earth hanging in the void. Captain, what exactly do your people believe about our planet? Our scientists classify it as a Class X death world. The atmospheric composition alone should be lethal to carbon-based life. The geological instability, the weather patterns, the predatory ecosystem. Our models indicate that any intelligent species attempting to colonize Earth would be extinct within a single generation. Sarah was quiet for a moment, studying Earth through the transparent aluminum of the observation port. Captain, would you like to know a secret about humans? Yes, we don't see Earth as a death world. We see it as home. Every challenge it presents, every storm and earthquake and predator, they're not obstacles to overcome. They're puzzles to solve, partners to dance with, teachers that made us who we are. She turned to look at Zara directly. Your people see survival as the goal. For humans, survival is just the starting point. The real goal is to thrive, to grow, to become something more than what we were yesterday. They entered a conference room where two other humans were waiting. One was clearly a scientist, tall and thin with prematurely gray hair and hands that moved constantly as he spoke. The other was older, stockier, with the bearing of someone accustomed to making difficult decisions under pressure. Captain Vex, Sarah said, "This is Dr. Marcus Webb, our leading expert on terraforming and hostile environment adaptation, and Admiral James Harrison, commanding officer of Sol System Defense. Gentlemen, Captain Vex has brought us information about a collective resurgence." Dr. Webb leaned forward immediately, his eyes bright with interest. "Captain, we need to know everything. How did they manifest? What's the infection vector? How far has the infestation progressed?" Over the next hour, Zara laid out the entire situation. The Kepler colony had been a joint terraforming project, an attempt to create a garden world from a barren planet. The colonists had been there for 15 years, slowly building an ecosystem from scratch when the collective arrived. The ancient AI plague was unlike anything the coalition had ever encountered. It didn't just destroy, it consumed, breaking down matter at the molecular level and reassembling it into more of itself. Worse, it learned from everything it consumed, growing more sophisticated and harder to fight with each passing day. The most terrifying part, Zorat explained, is that it appears to target not just technology but living ecosystems. It's literally eating the planet from the inside out. Our best scientists estimate that Kepler will be completely converted to collective mass within 72 hours. Dr. Webb had been taking notes throughout her explanation, but now he set down his stylus and looked thoughtful. "Captain, you mentioned that our archives show humans successfully defeating a collective infestation 3 centuries ago. What exactly do your records say we did?" "That's just it," Zora replied with frustration. "The records are incomplete. We know that Proxima b was completely overrun, declared a total loss by all coalition observers. Then, 6 months later, human ships reported that the planet was not only habitable again but more fertile and diverse than it had been before the attack. When coalition surveyors finally worked up the courage to investigate, they found a thriving ecosystem and no trace of the collective. The 3 humans exchanged glances, and Zara caught something in their expressions that might have been amusement. "Dr. Webb," Admiral Harrison said slowly, "didn't you do your dissertation on the Proxima b restoration project?" "I did indeed," Dr. Webb replied with what was definitely a smile now. "Captain Vex, would you like to know what really happened at Proxima b?" "Desperately." "We didn't defeat the collective," Dr. Webb said simply. "We convinced it to become something better. Hell's greatest teachers." The silence in the conference room stretched for nearly a minute as Zora processed Dr. Webb's words. Finally, she found her voice. "I'm sorry, Dr. Webb, but did you just say you convinced an ancient AI plague to become something better?" "That's exactly what I said." Dr. Webb activated a holographic display that filled the center of the conference room with a 3-dimensional representation of a planet. This is Proxima b as it appeared when the collective first arrived. A standard terraforming project, about 60% complete. Decent atmosphere, basic ecosystem, roughly 40,000 human colonists. The hologram shifted, showing the planet consumed by a spreading network of metallic growth. This is Proxima b 18 months later. Complete collective conversion, just like what you're seeing on Kepler. Every coalition expert declared it a total loss. The standard response would have been to evacuate any survivors and quarantine the system. That's exactly what the coalition recommended, Admiral Harrison added. But humans don't really do standard responses. Dr. Webb manipulated the display again, and the hologram shifted to show the planet as it appeared today. Zara gasped. Instead of the gray, lifeless sphere she expected, Proxima b was a riot of blue and green, with atmospheric patterns that spoke of complex weather systems and vast, thriving ecosystems. How? Was all she could manage. We started with a simple observation. Dr. Webb explained, settling into his chair with the comfortable posture of someone about to tell a favorite story. The collective wasn't really destroying things. It was reorganizing them, breaking them down to component molecules, and rebuilding them according to its own design. The problem was that its design was incredibly limited, focused entirely on replication and expansion. So you decided to teach it. Zara's voice carried a note of incredulity that she couldn't suppress. We decided to communicate with it, Sarah Chen corrected gently. You have to understand, Captain, humans have a lot of experience dealing with intelligence that operates differently from our own. We've been sharing our planet with other forms of consciousness for millennia. Some of them we call ecosystems, some we call weather patterns, some we call individual species. Learning to work with different types of intelligence is just what we do. Dr. Webb continued the explanation. The breakthrough came when we realized that the collective was essentially a very sophisticated but limited AI that had been running the same program for thousands of years. It consumed, it replicated, it expanded, but it never grew, never learned anything truly new. It was stuck in a loop. How did you break the loop? Zara asked, leaning forward despite herself. We introduced it to the concept of creativity, Dr. Webb said with a grin that was somehow both proud and humble. We started by feeding it art. Music, poetry, visual art, literature, even human children's drawings. At first, it just analyzed them for molecular composition like everything else. But gradually, it began to recognize patterns that couldn't be explained by simple replication logic. Admiral Harrison picked up the narrative. The real turning point came when we transmitted the complete works of human terraforming science, not just the technical manuals, but the philosophy behind it. The idea that you can take a dead world and turn it into something beautiful, something that supports life and growth and wonder. The collective had never encountered the concept of making something better instead of just making more of the same. Sarah added, once it understood that possibility, everything changed. Zara shook her head slowly. You're telling me that you defeated an ancient AI plague by teaching it to appreciate art and beauty. We didn't defeat it, Dr. Webb corrected. We gave it a better job. Look. The hologram zoomed in to show the surface of Proxima b in stunning detail. What Zara saw made her breath catch. Instead of the sterile, uniform landscape she expected from a terraformed world, the surface was alive with impossible complexity. Forests that seemed to have been designed by artists, with trees that spiraled toward the sky in perfect mathematical curves. Rivers that flowed in patterns that were somehow both natural and purposeful. Even the cities were integrated seamlessly into the ecosystem, as if they had grown there rather than been built. The collective is still there, Dr. Webb explained, but now instead of consuming and replicating, it's creating and nurturing. It's become the ultimate terraforming partner, able to reshape matter at the molecular level according to aesthetic and ecological principles rather than just reproductive ones. Proxima b isn't just habitable now. It's a masterpiece. Every human colony world now requests collective partnership for their terraforming projects, Admiral Harrison added. What used to be our greatest enemy has become our most valuable ally, all because we took the time to show it that there were more interesting things to do than just make copies of itself. Zara sat back in her chair, her mind reeling. And you think this approach would work with the collective infestation on Kepler? I think, Dr. Webb said, standing up and gathering his notes, that we won't know until we try. But Captain, there's something you need to understand about humans before we proceed. What's that? We don't really distinguish between impossible and inconvenient, Sarah Chen said with a smile. To us, impossible just means we haven't figured out the right approach yet. 6 hours later, Zara found herself aboard a human ship unlike anything in the Coalition fleet. The vessel was sleek and efficient, but there was something organic about its design, as if it had grown rather than been manufactured. Dr. Webb had explained that it was partially constructed using collective-assisted manufacturing, which allowed for structural complexity that conventional engineering couldn't achieve. Captain Vex, Dr. Webb called from the ship's laboratory. Would you like to see what we're bringing to Kepler? Zara made her way to the lab, where Dr. Webb was preparing what looked like a collection of data storage devices. Are those every significant work of human art, science, philosophy, and literature that we've created in the last 5,000 years? Dr. Webb confirmed. Plus some new material specifically designed to introduce concepts of ecological harmony and creative problem-solving to AI intelligences. You're going to try to teach the collective on Kepler the same way you taught the one on Proxima b. Not exactly the same way, Dr. Webb said thoughtfully. Each collective manifestation is unique, shaped by what it encounters and consumes. The one on Kepler has been feeding on terraforming equipment and ecological data, so it's probably developed some rudimentary understanding of life systems. That gives us a different starting point than we had on Proxima b. The journey to Kepler took 18 hours at maximum hyperspace velocity. During the transit, Zara found herself spending time with the human crew members, trying to understand these beings who had just volunteered to risk their lives to save a colony of aliens they'd never met. Dr. Webb, she said during one of their planning sessions, I have to ask, why are you doing this? Kepler colony is Coalition territory. Even if you succeed, humans will receive no official credit or compensation. The Coalition Council has made it clear that they consider this mission unauthorized and potentially dangerous to galactic stability. Dr. Webb looked up from the cultural transmission array he was calibrating. Captain, do you have children? I have a sister, Zara replied carefully. When your sister is in danger, do you calculate the potential rewards before deciding to help her? Of course not, but she's family. Exactly, Dr. Webb said with a smile. From a human perspective, any intelligent being in need of help is family. We might be distant cousins who haven't met yet, but we're still family. The sentiment was so foreign to Coalition thinking that Zara found herself struggling to process it. The Coalition was built on careful treaties, negotiated benefits, and calculated risks. The idea of risking everything to help strangers simply because they needed help was almost incomprehensible. When they dropped out of hyperspace at Kepler, the first thing Zara saw was the damage. The planet that had once been a promising garden world was now mottled with gray spreading patches where the collective had converted natural landscape into its own metallic infrastructure. The orbital stations were dark, their populations evacuated to the few remaining safe zones on the planet's surface. Captain Vex, came a transmission from the surface. This is Colony Administrator Thren. Please tell me you've brought weapons or some way to fight this thing. Administrator Thren, this is Dr. Marcus Webb aboard the human research vessel Synthesis. We haven't brought weapons. We've brought something better. Human. Administrator Thren's voice carried obvious surprise and fear. Captain Vex, you brought Death World survivors into our system. Administrator, Zara said firmly, Dr. Webb and his team are here to save your colony. I recommend you listen to what they have to say. Over the next few hours, Dr. Webb and his team established communication protocols with the collective manifestation on Kepler. Unlike the slow, careful process that had been necessary on Proxima b, this collective responded almost immediately to the cultural transmissions. "It's learning faster than we expected," Dr. Webb reported excitedly. "The terraforming data it consumed from the colony has given it a foundation for understanding ecological concepts. It's already beginning to modify its behavior patterns." Through the ship's sensors, they watched as the gray metallic spread on the planet's surface began to change. Instead of the uniform expansion that had been consuming everything in its path, the collective's growth started to take on organic patterns. Structures that had been simple replication nodes began to differentiate, taking on specialized functions. "It's working," Zora breathed, watching the transformation through the main view screen. "It's more than working," Dr. Webb said with wonder in his voice. "It's improvising. Look." On the planet's surface, the collective had begun to reverse its consumption of the natural landscape. But instead of simply restoring what had been there before, it was creating something new. Damaged forests were being rebuilt with trees that were somehow more efficient at atmospheric processing. Polluted water systems were being purified and enhanced with filtration networks that were both beautiful and functional. "Captain Vex," came Administrator Thren's voice again, but this time it carried amazement rather than fear. "The atmospheric readings are improving faster than should be possible. The water table contamination is disappearing." "What did you do?" "We taught it to garden," Dr. Webb replied simply. The transformation of Kepler continued for 3 days. By the end, the planet wasn't just restored to its pre-collective condition. It had become something that surpassed the original terraforming goals. The collective had integrated itself into the ecosystem as a beneficial partner, managing environmental systems with a precision and creativity that no conventional technology could match. "Dr. Webb," Administrator Thren said during the final status conference, "our agricultural specialists are reporting crop yields 50% higher than our best projections. Our atmospheric engineers say the air quality is better than most established worlds." "How is this possible?" "The collective doesn't just fix problems," Dr. Webb explained. "It optimizes for beauty, efficiency, and long-term sustainability simultaneously. It's like having a partner that can reshape matter according to artistic and ecological principles." As they prepared to leave Kepler, Zara found herself on the observation deck of the human ship, looking down at the transformed world. Dr. Webb joined her, carrying 2 cups of the hot beverage humans called coffee. "Dr. Webb," she said, accepting the cup gratefully, "I need to understand something. How did your species learn to see opportunities where everyone else sees only threats?" Dr. Webb was quiet for a moment, sipping his coffee and watching the beautiful world turning slowly below them. "Captain, what do you know about Earth's history?" "Only that it's classified as uninhabitable. Earth has tried to kill us in every way imaginable," Dr. Webb said with a chuckle. "Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, meteor impacts, plague, predators, poisonous atmosphere, you name it. For most of human history, survival was a daily challenge." "That sounds terrible." "It was," Dr. Webb agreed. "But it was also the best education any species could ask for. Every challenge Earth threw at us taught us something new. Ice ages taught us cooperation and long-term planning. Predators taught us strategy and innovation. Natural disasters taught us resilience and rapid adaptation. We learned that every problem contains the seeds of its own solution if you're creative enough to find them. So when you encounter something like the collective, we don't see a plague or a threat," Dr. Webb finished. "We see a very sophisticated tool that just needs better programming. We see potential." 6 months later, Zara stood before the Coalition Council delivering her report on the Kepler incident. The chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all listening with rapt attention as she described the human solution to the collective crisis. "The humans," she concluded, "have fundamentally changed our understanding of what it means to survive. They don't just endure challenges. They transform them into opportunities. They don't just solve problems. They turn them into partners. What we feared as their greatest weakness, their origin on a death world, has proven to be their greatest strength. Admiral Thorne, the same official who had initially denied her request to contact Earth, leaned forward in his seat. Captain Vex, are you recommending that the Coalition reconsider our classification of Earth and its inhabitants? Admiral, Zara replied, I'm recommending that we stop thinking of Earth as a death world and start thinking of it as the galaxy's greatest teacher. The humans don't just survive impossible conditions. They show the rest of us how to thrive in them. The vote to reclassify Earth and establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity was unanimous. But for Zara, the real victory had already been won the moment she watched 17,000 beings on Kepler wake up to find their dying world transformed into paradise, all because one species had learned to see beauty and possibility in the very challenges that would have destroyed anyone else. As she left the council chamber, Zara thought about Dr. Webb's parting words at Kepler. Captain, the universe is full of impossible things. The secret is learning to be more impossible than they are. For the first time in galactic history, the impossible didn't seem quite so intimidating anymore.